And welcome back to Wall Tactics. We're here to talk about the WCW list. Well, the Orc ones. Whoa! So, why would you even care about what these world-class players are running? Not all of us are meta chasers. We can't necessarily copy them, nor should we. So, what is my goal here? What is the goal here for us to actually look at and actually gain a value? Because whenever I show you lists, it's not because I necessarily want you to copy them, right? When you copy a list directly, you can't really get everything. You don't really know the context of how it was being used, the terrain, how it was utilized, and things like that. That's why copying doesn't work. That's why when you look at these WCW lists, you must take into consideration that they are a meta within a meta, meaning that these world class players, not necessarily scouts, but are very much aware of what the other guys want to play, what they're used to playing, and they will a lot of the time take off meta or unpopular lists or units because they're trying to catch opponents off guard, right? 40k a lot of the time is a knowledge-based game, but not only about your army but your opponent's army. So when you're coming to these world-class players and all you guys are pretty much equal skill level, 1% off from each other, how you make the difference in the impact? The difference is the actual knowledge of the opponent's army. Doing something that is universally known means that I actually can look at your list and pretty much know exactly what your list does before we even start the game. That's why when you look at these lists, know that for the most part, some of these world-class players will only run this list one time in this one spot because of that, right? So keep that in mind. So when we look at this, what are we looking for? We're looking at unique combos. We're looking at unique, archetypes or meta or lists pretty much that can catch us that are off meta, yet are going to obviously have been tested, tried and true for these world-class players because they wouldn't bring them if they hadn't refined these lists. So we're going to get some secret off meta lists that world-class players refine and make work. Does that mean you can make it work? Not necessarily, but you can actually look at the combos and start getting ideas and implement them into your own game plan. So with that being said, let's take a look at today's sponsor, the Baron of Dice. So the Baron of Dice actually allows us to do our paint competition. Shout out to them. Check them out in the description for 5% off because nobody likes taxes. And hopefully you guys can help us out with the Wall Tactics Dice, as it greatly helps channel and it helps us do our paint competition because we like to support the community and have fun with everybody gets. So with that being said, let's move on to the first war boss. One of the most grand war bosses for the most part, Brad Chester. So Brad Chester was bold enough to take Orks to WCW, right? Don't worry, I'm actually going to show the pools and everything. I have BCP up as well, right? But I think for the most part, it's much easier for everybody to read lists if I still presented this sort of way, right? So we're going to take a look at all of these players' lists. We're going to see how I feel about them. Do I think they're going to make it out of their pod, supposedly? Maybe what some of their weaknesses is. Let's see what we can extrapolate from here and see what cool combos might be known or some lessons that we can continue to learn and take to our other lists. So we have Brad Chester's mass MSU list. So Brad Chester is known for saying, I love garbage. When he and him used to talk, we're talking Discord, and a lot of the time I was like, hey, gas, dude, gas. And he's like, oh, man, I know the value in gas, but I really have a hard time taking something that's over 300 points. So for the most part, he still brought a ton of units and still brought gas. Gas is almost an auto include, in my humble opinion, for a war horde list. Can you run them without it? Absolutely. But these are the important combos that you'll miss. One, he has 3 beast bosses on foot, one with follow me, lads. Each one of these beast bosses is comboed with 10 beast snagger boys. So he has 3 of that beast snagger boss combo ready to go right alongside gas or just to work independently. That's something people really love about the beast bosses. Of course, we know about the Unbridled Carnage tap potential there, where you can use Incredible Carnage, reroll a hit roll, fish for that 5s. But the fact is the beast boss can just work outside of the wall. He just works outside the wall, especially in Warhorde, because you're just giving him Unbridled Carnage. Boom, you're still going to be popping off. You can still reroll and spike and look for hits. In fact, the Beast Boss is more likely to go off without Gaz's lethals, right? Because the lethals take away from his potential to do dev wounds. So these guys go independently of the wall constantly. That's what he's looking for when he's playing this MSU list. Then he has Gazgul, 2 war bosses, and a Zogrot Wartsnagga. So you hardly ever see people use Zogrot Wartsnagga in a Warhorde list. We've talked about it. We've done it in theory because he has access to this, strats. You can still make it really powerful, but people don't necessarily use it yet. For the most part, Brad Chester is always looking to steal his opponent's home field objective or just really gunk up people's gun lines, right? So he takes advantage of the scouting, takes advantage of the movement of 12 inches. And it's interesting because he has no infiltrators to defend from that. So he's just kind of confident in his place with or without it. Then we do have 3 trucks, a little less than you would kind of expect if you're on for a full MSU list, but because he has gas, he has less trucks, kind of, right? 1 big brick of flash kits, the nice fat 10-man unit, and then a 5-man unit, followed by a big unit of 20 Grats for 22 Grats, but for Zagra Wartsnaga for the super runs. Then he has 2 10-man units of Grats for his backline objectives, and of course the run herders. A 2-man unit of Meganobs. Each is equipped with 1 power claw and 1 kill saw. We know the reason this is because when you're in Warhorde, you're looking for the proficiency and profile rather than the reroll to wounds, because you're in Gaz's unit anyways, right? So he's getting +1 to wound, +1 to hit. Therefore, you either want more volume or you want more AP. So you choose based off that. Then you have 2 5-man units of Knobs. Love those guys nowadays, of course, right? Act as your SWAT teams. And then 2 5-man units of Storm Boys. A lot of the times you guys got to remember, you don't have to put Storm Boys in reserve to get value, especially if you have 2. 1 goes in deep strike, 1 stays on the table, early board scoring, your grenade boy, move blocking boy, advance and charging boy outside of the wall. A lot of cool things you can do from Brad Chester's list. From what I know, let me see if I pull this up here, right? Brand Chester. He's in group 3. Now we don't have, you can see I have this up right here. I try to look at pairings. Unless I went through and looked at every single person's group necessarily and then wrote it down and then put that out, then I don't know everybody who's in his pod to really dictate. That being said, we can kind of deduce what are going to be some hard matchups for a MSU small type of list of a bunch of units, right? And that is highly durable, highly durable 2+ armor saves in variation, plus units with mass overwatch, a bunch of I would say a bunch of scouting potential units could gunk this army up a little bit, push it back, and then kill everything slowly at the rate it controls. The thing is, Brad Chester himself knows how to play multiple missions, multiple rounds dependent on the mission, right? A lot of the time, intermediate, newer level players, no shine to you guys, no disrespect to anybody like that, is that they don't understand the difference between, well, I'm playing Lichpin, so I actually should play this bit a little bit slower sometimes, depending on the matchup that I'm in. Some people don't understand that Scorched Earth, most of the time, the person can just play slow game right there, and then whoever's going second, just play the end and burn burn Scorched Earth, and then boom, you get a little bit of an advantage there on primary as long as you keep the secondary scoring. There's a bunch of different missions like, Purge the Foe, where you can just have to hold 1 objective out there and the rest is just killing people. Newer players will run out and touch multiple objectives. There's a lot of differences when understanding how to play this list or not, meaning Brad can very much throttle because he has Gaz and all the beast bosses, and he can very much play the long game because he has so much MSU units. I do know he is in the pod with Mr. Jack Harpster from what I heard from Art of War, so that'll be really cool. Let's move on to the next get because we actually have 6 lists we're going to be covering for Ork players. So this is 1 of 6. And shout out to the chat. Whoa, the Tiger Melts for being the first wall get, and everybody that's up in here too. It says, reminder that all the gets at home base that the rounds are 4 hours with only 2 games per day. There's LTOs of Hordes. Check out Derek, 40K Dirtbag Cultist, GMC, bringing guards and bringing models. We'll talk about models, boy, because you're right. There are a good amount of Hordes there. Next, we're going to talk about Michael Mann. Michael Mann is just catching everybody by storm with this list. Now, Michael Mann, you might have heard of him from before. He was running a Bully Boys list where he ended up placing, I think, 2nd or 3rd with his Bully Boys. He was about to win a GT as well. But nonetheless, he's a member of Team America, highly exceptional player, still qualified for this. That being said, he still took Orks. Not only that, but he took Dread Mob. The only get bold enough and wise enough, no, I'm just kidding, but we'll only get that was bold enough to come out here and take Dread Mob. And a lot of the time, people really don't know what's going on this list. Like we started the conversation with, how much do people really know about your list? How much do they know about your detachment rules? How much do they know about your units? When you're playing Dread Mob, people don't really understand what to do here, right? And that's the one thing that to keep in mind is that when we looked at Art of War going over the WCW list, when they came over Michael Mann's list, whether Jack Harpster was joking or not, he said, this has combos here, not sure what they are, right? Just the fact that Jack might have to take a second as an Ork player himself to really evaluate Michael Mann's list to know exactly what it does indicates it does have a depth of knowledge behind it that will give him an advantage over his opponents at the world-class level. That's why we're looking at these lists. So what combos did actual Michael Mann look at here? And one thing I want to take into for you guys to think about is that this is very similar to a Dakka WAAAGH, like we know the Dakka archetype, right? Where we showed a lot of Grats, a lot of flash kits, a lot of Ludas, a lot of mech guns. We've seen that being used at teams and in singles. That we call that a Dakka WAAAGH, Dread Mob, right? We call that. This shows a bit of that, and it also shows a bit of the truck spam archetype, meaning people would bring War Horde, a bunch of knobs, a bunch of beast bosses, a bunch of flash kits. They put 5 trucks on the table, 6 trucks on the table. They fill the table up with transports and bodies, put boys in the trucks, whatever they can for fit the points and whatever fit their style. Nonetheless, it was known as a truck spam archetype. Michael Mann has combined the Dakka WAAAGH and a truck spam. Now, what do I mean by that? So we have 3 units of Big Meks with shock attack guns. One of those units is, of course, the Warlord with an enhancement for Get Finder goggles. Mandatory. If you're playing this detachment, always bring it. Don't even argue. Just use it. I don't do that often. A lot of time I make suggestions. This is not a suggestion. So we have 2 individual mechs and Zagrot Wartsnaga. I absolutely love Zagrot Wartsnaga in Dread Mob. His reaction move of 12 inches on the wall will keep everybody, no matter what level of player they are, on the back foot if you're placing them correctly between your deployment and scouting. The fact that you can stage him and just let the enemy know this is, 23 OC, or more than that, 43 OC, because each grad is 2. And you're like, and I can move 12, and then I'll reactive move 12. I'll charge, I'll advance and charge. If I don't, I could just walk up and shoot you with pistols and a bunch of volume of fire, so I can clear your screens. I can ship vehicles. I can kill certain models that I shouldn't be able to kill. It'd be screen certain units, get in the way of melee, get in the way of gun lines. It's fantastic. Get in the way of Titanic units by just kind of reactively fitting up space. Even if they want to move over, you just put models in the way there, getting over any kind of things like that. It feels Zagrot is amazing. Once you use them, you don't want to stop using them in Dread Mob. That being said, what do the 2 mechs do? What are these 2 mechs doing? Because there are 3 individual mech guns on this list, and I'll tell you now, those individual mech guns are not getting individual mechs for them. So the mechs can only give a +1 to hit to an individual model, not a unit, model. Meaning that these mechs are not going with the 1 6-man unit of Killicans here that we'll talk about in a bit. So what is this guy doing? The mechs are simply there to give +1 to hit to the trucks, because on this list, alongside the 2 10-man units of flash kits, we have 3 units of Ludas with those shock attack guns that we just spoke about. Each Luda unit has 2 rockets. That's what he chose to bring alongside them on the spanners, meaning that he's going to stick 1 mech in each one of these trucks, as he has 5 trucks available, and he's going to disembark him, give the truck +1 to hit after it's moved. Check out our videos on how to use the truck like that, and give the vehicle truck +1 to hit when it's using the profiles of these units that are embarked in it. Now, I cannot tell you directly exactly what's going in every one of these trucks. I can presume that he's putting all the Ludas and all the flash kits in the trucks. But there's some people that could make the arguments for maybe he puts Grats in the truck. Maybe he puts one of the Luda units in reserve. Maybe he puts both flash kit units in reserve, matchup dependent. Where's the mech going? Well, that's matchup dependent as well. You have to remember that Ludas natively hit on 6s. That means even when the truck moves and gets +1 to hit, they're hitting on 5s. So only the shotguns are really hitting on 4s in that place with that gun. So it's matchup dependent. Do you want the shock attack gun value, the Luda's value, or do you want the actually hitting on 4 pluses with strength 6 -1 to 2 damage sustain from your flash kits? So the flash kits can move around. The truck just simply sticks its bumper around a corner. The mech jumps out, gives it +1 to hit, and then you're shooting with a 10-man unit of flash kits. You don't get the data sheet ability. You don't get the pop your lethals, but you do get sustain, because sustain is a part of the weapon, right? So imagine the truck has all of the flash kits weapons attached to the outside of it, if you need to visualize this to understand how it works, and the mech is making the truck shoot all of those guns at +1 to hit. The flash kits are just sitting there twiddling their thumbs because they don't have any abilities that they can use when they're in the vehicle. Meaning that you can make the argument that +1 to hit, the mech can either give it to the unit of Ludas that are in the truck or the 10-man units of flash kits in the truck. Definitely matchup dependent. If you're going against a bunch of 3-man the T3 units, you're going to simply give it to the flash kits. Then he does have, I think it's 4 10-man units of Grats, and like I said, 3 individual mech guns now. What are the individual mech guns doing? They have bubble chuckas. They're just meant to try to go off and hopefully get shots off. A lot of the time, people will reserve these mech guns and then bring them in on table edges or on sides of the table to do secondary missions and to stop enemy reserves or just to occupy space. That's straight up what people use mech guns for. So there's a good time that's why they brought mech guns. I'm not used to seeing people bring 3. Usually it's like 2, but sure, maybe he had the points for that. Now, last but certainly not least, the core of this list, I'm sure that really makes this list kind of work out as well because it's not redundant, right? This is the one-time tool. He has a 6-man unit of killer cans. I recently did a unit on walkers. I have to say the killer cans are a part of that when I talked about them in that video. You'll see that on Monday as well. But killer cans are exceptional units when you know how to use this one big brick correctly. It is hard to maneuver. It is a 6-man unit. They have big bases. They are vehicles, but you can put them in strategic reserve. Rapid ingress in on the side of the table. Now, these units are extremely CP intensive. So it's going to take Michael Mann a lot of thinking here to know that when to use Zod, when to reactive move, when to disembark his looters, when it's time to reroll hits on the objective and kind of keep the enemy away, because something here that he really doesn't have is a lot of punching if he gets pressured. So if he plays a lot of fast melee pressure armies, he's really going to have to use those trucks, use those grots, those reactive moves, and kind of buy his time, right? So I love Michael Mann's list. It's definitely going to catch people off guard, like I said in the beginning, which is why we're looking at these lists. Shout out to Jim Jones, right? From 40K in 40 minutes when he was on and me and him were talking about his list. He had a mech with +1 to hit on his list that he took the teams. Very unorthodox kind of archetype and style to use. Michael Mann found his own uniqueness in this, where he didn't bring a couple. He brought full on spam of it, and he brought a brick of killer cans. If you want to know more about how killer cans work, check out the video. I love them. They are intense to use, and you got to be a cunning git. That being said, Henrietta, whoa, thank you very much. Super generous of you with 20 euros. My goodness. British friendly time. Have a cup of tea on me. Well, thank you very much. That is very generous of you. Wow, that's a lot. Thank you very much, and I hope you find value and entertainment in this. It means a lot to me that you guys would do it. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. So, thank you. So that being said, call me off guard. The killer cans. Trust me. If you haven't looked on the killer cans, check out the video. You'll have fun. They're awesome. I don't know what bracket he's in, but Michael Mann, you're dope. I like your list a lot. You're my favorite right now. Next we have Benjamin Poe. I think he was Benjamin. I have to pull up where he's. I'll pull up his name real quick. But for Benjamin's list, we have a Bully Boys list. So I'll say right now, out of all of this we're covering, because I said there's 6, not to leave y'all hanging, 3 of them are War Horde, and the other 3 are one's a Green Tide, one's a Bully, and one's a Dread Mob. So we've gone over the Dread Mob. Here's the Bully, and then we have a War Horde, and we have Green Tides, right? So stay with me. If you want me to go faster, if I'm going slow or too fast, let me know. So we have Benjamin here. So Benjamin has a Bully Boys list. Now I will say this is very as I want to say, vanilla, reliable, known Bully Boys. This is Gazgul Thraka, 3 times war bosses, 2 times war bosses mega armor. One of them has a big gob, and one of them has the teleporter. He has a 10-man unit of boys, followed by 2 individual trucks, 3 small units of Gretchen, 3 5-man units of Mega Knobs, all equipped with twin kill saws, and then 3 5-man units of Knobs with power claws, followed by 2 units of Storm Boys. So now what's going on with this list? What I will say is it has all the knobs you need. He's going to have a good time trying to bully people that just, let's say, eat an Eldar army, for example, where he can wand to them. Anything getting touched, he's just shredding. What I will say, he is a bit low on transports, which kind of caught me off guard here. Make sure I have his list correctly. Make sure I didn't butcher it. Because I have everybody's list up here if we want to look. Actually, I'll let you guys look with me so you're not just stuck in nowhere land. There we go. Oh, yeah, make you guys look with me. All right, make sure I didn't miss it. Because, yeah, he has 2 trucks. Make sure I didn't butcher anybody's list here. So to bring all of these knobs and gas, he really had to forsake the transports. So this guy is very ground and pounding. Of course, he has a teleporter, so he can put a unit of Mega Knobs into Deep Strike. That's going to be nice. He's going to have to utilize reserves as well. Now, this is definitely not to discourage or anything wrong with Benjamin's list, or I'm sure he's exceptional to even qualify for this. I'm sure he could put a crumpet on me if we matched up 1v1 and he's bullying bully boy and bully boy. That being said, we got to remember at a world-class level, Bully Boy runs into one issue that we constantly bring up on this channel. They get screened. They get screened. Movement wins games. Shenanigans is king. Someone like Richard Siegler, who is running 3 units of those pyro stalkers, which are essentially their units of scoot and shoot. He's looking to come down, shoot, and get in the way of you, right? He has 2 10-man bricks and a 5-man brick. That's one example of a multitude of units that are looking to come down, whether it's scoot and shoot, deep strike, and just kind of stand around and get in the way later and score. That's what these units have a hard time with as bully boys. They don't usually have a volume of shooting. They're not playing multiple phases of the game. They're really just running you down and running you over. A lot of people are going to have scouting, infiltrators to really hold the line to stop this kind of momentum coming forward, because these are world-class players and they are familiar with vanilla style of detachments that are known for each faction. That being said, bully boys was something that every world-class player had to be familiar with when they were known to be strong. Therefore, any style of bully boys that is there in a hint of or a shadow of what that was, they're going to have some familiarization with it. They're going to know how to play against it, and it's going to be built into their list because something like World Eaters plays like that innately, right? So this list is going to run into, I hope the mission goes right for Benjamin sometimes, and the matchup, because there's some armies that don't want Orcs still to deal with, still can run up on Feel No Pains. You got a Gaz up in here. It's really cool. He has access to Armor Contempt. You can make people fall back and instantly die, and it can swing games because they're rolling it on 1s, 2s, and 3s instead, like we know. So there's a bunch of options here. Great success you can have here. I'm just saying that when it comes to, am I going to break into out of my bracket? Am I going to break out of my bracket? Now, can I win games? I'm sure Benjamin can win games. Can I break out of my bracket? This list is going to run into straight up too many bodies, because we already know there's going to be a lot of hordes. We're going to cover them. And then 2, we know that there's going to be a lot of shenanigans, movement shenanigans, and Bully Boys hates both of those. So shout out to Benjamin for even qualifying and being a magnificent orc player. And Atlanta is the new orange. Whoa! So hope you do well. Good luck to you. I love the fact that you're running Bully Boys, though, because right now, so am I. That's what I'm running too. So I'm in love with that too. So we have next Jasper with his international flight to Wagon City. So he decided he's going to go straight up battle wagon heavy. So Jasper has been shown before what he's done, how well he is. Very exceptional player. Let's look at what he's kind of done here. So he has 2 units of beast bosses, and each have enhancements. One's with Follow Me Lads and one's with Cunning But Brutal. He has Gazgul Thraka, a war boss with super cyborg body, and then 2 individual war bosses with no enhancements. That being said, the kicker here, like I said, the reason you're even here watching this guy has 2 units of beast bosses with 2 20-man units of Beast Snagga Boys. Not simply 2 10-man units like all you guys are familiar with, like we all know and love, but the 20-man units have made it to the table again. If you check out our video on what we predicted would happen with the org changes and the most recent changes with points, I said, guys, now that they've dropped the beast bosses, the Beast Snagga Boys down, you can, consider them for 20-man bricks to run around with Gaz. Jasper directly did that, and he stuck them inside of 2 battle wagons with Ard case. That is amazing amount of volume of strength 6 punches on the wall, and a bunch of lethals that are going off at that time as well. A good amount of OC. They all have a built-in Feel No Pain for a little bit more of durability. So I actually think that's really, really cool, and you're not paying for additional characters. So he paid for all the enhancements on each one of these different units. He does have a simple 10-man unit of Boyz for lonely sticky objectives, because we love that, followed by 2 units of trucks to go alongside those battle wagons. He has 1 burner boy, 1 10-man units of grots, simply 2 mega knobs for Gas with twin kill saws, 2 5-man units of knobs with power claws, and then 1 storm boy. So you can put a boy unit into a truck. You can put the knobs into another truck. A lot of the time, people like to use burner boys to put them into reserve, because you put them in reserve and you put them coming off the table edge overlooking an enemy objective, and an enemy wants to use, they're going to use Overwatch on them, or you could put them in a SWAT team with the truck and then let them disembark and do something similar. So as long as you can get burner boys near objectives, they can go hard. And if you really need the points, and you can't afford flash kits, Brina boys are totally fine. Do I like them more than flash kits? Absolutely not. Do I like them in general? Yeah, totally. So Jasper's list. These battle wagons are really, live or die, ride or die here, right? Something that people don't consider when you're a, we'll say intermediate level player sometimes, is what happens when your battle wagon gets charged by, I don't know, Angron, and Angron blows up your battle wagon and you disembark your boys, and then Angron just consolidates into your unit of Beast Snagga boys if they don't have the enhancement. If you're not paying for that, right? Because not every unit's in Havoc, he has two. It's like, okay, well, you can you're like, I'm going to fight him. Well, you don't have devastating wounds. That happens in the charge. You're not going to get all the boys in the combat because you had to disembark. That sucks for you. So the battle wagons are very much live or die sometimes. Not only just the shooting, right? Because some armies can just straight up pop battle wagons. Are they pretty freaking durable because they have built-in armor of contempt at all time and their toughness 12? Absolutely. But how many armies look at the meta and say, I have to kill a land raider, I'm going to know how to? That's what we're looking at here. So there are going to be strict matchups that 20 Beast Snagga boys really just doesn't have the answer to. And then there's some armies that 20 Beast Snagga choose just melt you. They melt you if they get close to you. So I absolutely love it. A good CP value in this list for anything he uses. Very elite, very stringent type of list. It's going to be on GW terrain, so the battle wagons can actually move around. When you get blown up, it's about where you disembark, right? Always keep that in mind when you're running with the battle wagon. It's not about where you plan to go. It's about what happens when you stop or where you're deployed. So if you get blown up, where are you disembarking? So Jasper has shown that he can, he can take advantage of that. He can hold it down. He has no issue with this. So shout out to Jasper for running the battle wagons. But not only that, 2 20-man units of Beast Snagga boys. So be sure to keep an eye on this. We're definitely glad that he has the enhancements of fall back and charge for this, right? Because that's why you would really want this. It's not necessarily that you're looking for your 20-man unit to survive once you want and declare combat. A lot of the time, once you want and run into people, your unit's going to be deleted. This is for when your battle wagon gets destroyed and maybe somebody consolidates into your unit that you can't kill and holds it in place. Well, you can fall back and now get into combat, right? So very much like this list. I like that he still fits some SWAT teams on there and chucks, so he can still play a little bit defensive with his wagons if he has to, or he can overload one side of the table and the middle objective, and then he can play the SWAT teams to kind of delay the other side of the table, where he can kill their chaff. He can threaten with knobs and power claws with war bosses. And I like that one of those war bosses has a super cyborg body. So shout out to everybody there. And next we move on to John Holbrook. So John actually just won a GT with Green Tide. And here we have his Green Tide list, but he has modified it. And someone asked videos for the cans. It's in the Walker video. And it's in the Walker video we did recently. Most recently, we showed the Stampa, and it says Titanic and Walkers. That's where you find the cans video, but we're also going to have it in a smaller form on Monday. And yeah, awesome, right? Orks can bring multiple detachments for bringing 4 detachments to WCW, right? Ork players, this is what I'm telling you, right? As much as I love us and I love you, the Hunt and Cult of Speed probably won't get any buffs because of the fact that we have 4 detachments that we can interact with. And the fact that 4 people world-class level decided to bring them kind of shows that. So John brought his Green Tide list. Shout out to you, John, if you see this video. You're awesome. It's crazy that you run this list in that amount of allotted time. You're a monster. So John decided he's going to run even more bodies. I'll tell you guys again, if you hadn't seen me last time, I run a Green Tide. As soon as I get to about 120 bodies, I start trying to cap my bodies out. I don't want to move any more bodies than that. John said, I will go even further and beyond. I will try to bring even more bodies if I can. That being said, let's take a look. He brought 6 20-man units of boys. He went full on all the boys. He said, hey, people are taking fixed against me anyways. When I have 100, might as well bring in more bodies. The title of his list was, if I bring more bodies, I'm bound to win something, right? So he has 6 20-man units of boys. He has a Big Mek with a Drilla and a Tractoblaster, Boss Nickrat, 3 pain bosses, 1 with bloodthirsty belligerents, 3 war bosses, 1 weird boy with as the warlord with cunning roll, followed by 2 small 11-man units of Gretchen, one commando bringing all the fixins. He has the breacher ram, the burner, the rocket, and then he has the power claw, followed by 2 5-man units of storm boys. So he ended up dropping his truck. You know, last time we talked about how he had the truck, so when the enemy pulled, bring it down. I guess he just found more utility in having more storm boys. I'm definitely not going to knock him for that. We did a video about how people use these units wrong. Storm boys was one of them. And when you constantly see people at top level use storm boys on Tabletop Live or anything like that, they leave storm boys on the table, especially if they have 2 units of them, and they run around, they throw grenades, they advance and charge into stuff that doesn't want to be touched. They score secondaries for you. They're much more than I simply put them in deep strike. So opting out a truck for a storm boy unit, totally fine. That being said, he doesn't have 2 units of commandos anymore. I guess he found value in just simply having 1 was enough. If you don't know how he plays this list, a lot of the time it's commandos go first, then he follows, commandos go first, and then he makes a line, right? What you're trying to do when you're playing Green Tide is to minimize the blow that enemies can deliver to your boy mob units independently. You never want one of your boy mob units to be below 12 models necessarily in one activation, especially. And you always want to be in a good position where you can pull bodies to be out of line of sight and then regen so that you still have momentum on that unit to get a good initiative, yet slow people down enough so that, you can't lose your whole unit, because you're going to get shot, you're going to lose some models, right? So what you really want to do is stop enemy counter charges that are more likely to deliver those really unit neutering blows. That being said, so he maximizes commandos to kind of act as a first line of deterrence, slow people's momentum so they don't get into Orks and take up our space, because Green Tide is not about killing your enemy. If you're looking to play Green Tide or understand Green Tide, know that it's really not all about killing your enemies. You're looking to kill them just enough so that you can control the rate of attrition, and then you can score points and then end up surviving them toward the end and end up winning. It's about scoring as many points as you can. This is what John said himself as well, trying to get the highest score possible and doing mathematical understanding of the enemy can only score this much if I deny him this much primary and this much secondary, which you're bound to do for the first 3 rounds if you control enough of the board. Then by that measure, I just need to score enough points. So that's why he brought Snikrot. Snikrot will allow him to score more secondary points, whether it's early game or because he can get picked up and put somewhere else, and he does individual model. And then the commandos still get to hold the space. That way the boys can kind of fill that space up as well. So he likes to do commandos to stop melee units. He lines them up. Then he'll maybe throw grots up and storm boys to kind of move up and take up space or do secondaries. And then comes the wave of boys. So that's how John Holbrook likes to run it. So he decided to cap even more into that archetype and that style. So good luck in that, John. You're a monster for trying to play this at the high level, like at this much, like we seen earlier. I think someone said they have more time to play, which is pretty sick. They do have more time to play in the less games each day. So that's going to be a factor here for people playing Hordes. They're going to get less games each day, so they're going to be less fatigued. So they might be able to pull it off, if my understanding is correct from the chat. So John Holbrook, shout out to you. You're brutal but cunning for running a Green Tide. Now we have, last but certainly not least, we have Ryan Mcguire. So Ryan Mcguire says 2 Orks, 1 wall. He brought a War Horde list. So in this War Horde list, he has 2 beast bosses, 1 Big Mek. Again, we're seeing more Big Meks, guys. A lot of these Big Meks sneaking in at the world-class level. Does that mean I want you to copy exactly what these world-class players are doing with their Big Mek? No. I want you to copy the list. But you can understand that if you're hinting on your Big Mek and you got them built up and you're trying to use them, there's a lot of different ways you can, get him to work in different detachments. So we have Big Mek, where I do like him in War Horde because he can actually get a little bit of movement enhancement and ability. We have Gazgul Dakka, and then we have Mazrog Scragbag. My Git brought the squigs. And we have a war boss with Follow Me Lad. I do think if you're bringing squigs at all, Mazrog is the only reason I would bring squigs. So thank you for bringing Mazrog. We have 2 2-man units of Beast Snagga boys, and then 1 big brick of 20 boys. Of course, they have Follow Me Lads, and they have the Big Mek. So like I said before, if you're running the War Horde with the Big Mek, remember, you get more movement, you get more advance, and then you can take advantage of all that with additional on the charge. Since his only ability only works for movement, War Horde allows you to threaten that movement even more, because the enemy goes, dang, man, he can move. What? What? Orcs move that fast? That's what you want to hear as an Orc player. That's what you want to hear. Then we have 3 individual trucks, followed by 1 battle wagon. I like that he opted for 1 battle wagon. Now, is bringing more totally fine, like we seen with Wagon City for Jasper? Sure. There's a lot of very exceptional players. I think one battle wagon is totally fine because it's easier to hide just that one wagon. A lot of time you're definitely not hiding the second one. Sometimes you just want that 20-man unit to get out and swarm the middle. Sometimes you just want them to blow away the enemy natural expansion objectives so they deny their primary. Therefore, one brick, especially if it can move through screens, sounds like he's looking to deny someone's primary somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Then we have a 10-man unit of flash kits, followed by 3 individual units of Gretchen. Notice a lot of these players, guys, that we've looked at use 3 units of 3 Gretchen if they're not in Dread Mob using more Gretchen. Having a bunch of Gretchen is exceptional when you understand how to use them other than just screening. Now, can you get away with some less? Yeah, for sure. Just know that if you were thinking about using more, there's a lot of different ways you can use more. Then we have a 2-man unit of Mega Knobs between Kill Saws, a 4-man unit of Squink Hog Boys, so the minimum size unit, and a 5-man unit of Storm Boys. He can only afford 1. 1's totally fine as well. 2 is easier, more easier on you as the orc player, direct for how you play because you put 1 in reserve and 1 not. Sometimes you just have to decide if you have the 1. In this matchup, it's a melee matchup. I'm leaving my Storm Boys on the table. They're going to run up. They're going to get in the way. They're going to stand in the way of my enemy so they can't charge me. Or, hey, this guy looks like he has something kind of hard to kill. I need to throw some grenades early. Storm Boys, go ahead. So, you know, maybe I need secondary game. I got to play the long game. He can't screen very well. Storm Boys in reserve. Deep strike, right? So totally appreciate this list as well. It's kind of like a Warhorde 2.0, where he's gone over and above and kind of updated what we know as an orc archetype for a Warhorde. He has a wagon, he has a couple of squigs, he has gas, he has a good amount, you know, at least 3 trucks, he has multiple beast bosses. These are all well-known, kind of more vanilla-ish type of Warhorde archetypal list and models that are going to be fine in this detachment and then this archetype. So totally fine. It should do moderately well. But again, we're seeing a lack of scout and infiltration, right? That's something that I've advised more and more to a lot of you guys to really consider when you're playing these games. The one thing is he does have the Big Mek, and at least the Big Mek can move if people try to get in the way. Just remember, a lot of people can try to jail you. And the nowadays, they can jail you pretty easily, or they can just innately move block you with all the shenanigans. So early board pressure, early board control is really important. And, you know, that might end up being a difference for Mr. Ryan as well. So shout out to Mr. Ryan Mcguire for his 2 orcs, 1 war horde. Love that you brought Squigs. Love that you brought Mazrog Scrag Bag, getting the respect Mazrog deserves. Well, he deserves because we like him, right? Just not necessarily deserve, but we credit him. Whoa, right? So with that being said, guys, yeah. So tell me what you guys think in chat. So you guys going off? That's what we're looking at here with the World Championships players and their lists. Like I said, you know, and when we're looking at these lists for the last time, just to articulate my conclusion here, these are not for you to go out and say you're going to copy all these lists and run them. It's not for that reason. A lot of these guys ran this list, refined it very well for this one specific event because they're looking to catch everyone else off guard, and they're going to play this list one time and get it going. Someone like Richard Siegler does that. You know, Jack Harser, Brad Chester has done something similar like that before. All of these known players that we know are good tend to, you know, not necessarily run the same exact list. Yet a couple people that are cool, you know, that we know, like we went over before, did run something similar to what they've been running. Like we said with Mr. John, who just recently won. He's run that list already, so he stuck to something very similar, right? Even when you're doing that, it's really just to give you guys ideas, just to kind of expand your mind. Maybe you were thinking about giving Mechs +1 a hit on your trucks. Weren't sure if that necessarily made sense. You watched the videos and seeing you could do it. Does it make sense to do? Well, clearly it does make sense to do. Otherwise, people at world-class level wouldn't necessarily do it. You see the killer can video we talked about. I look like a lunatic trying to tell you to play with killer cans. I told you at least one unit could possibly work in Dreadmon. Well, if you know the missions, definitely more likely to work because you know the tournament pack. So this is just to expand your creativity, give you guys some, you know, encouragement and confidence in running unique lists, unique archetypes. You know, shout out to Michael Mann for pretty much making his own archetype where he hybrided 2 different styles together and made a shooting, you know, truck transport open top style. And we really hope guys that ran these unique lists or these unique unit combos, like maybe the 20-man units of Beast Snaggle Boys, find some sort of success. That way we can maybe hear about it and learn more and expand our list and our fun designs. So just remember, guys, we do this for the fun. We do this for the Great WAAAGH. So everybody just be encouraged and happy because Orks are making a great appearance worldwide. We got 4 detachments making it rain. So with that being said, everybody, who do I think is actually going to break out of some of these attachments? If I had to favor, I have a really well, Brad Chester has to go through probably Jack Harpster. So the fact that Jack Harpster said he doesn't think that Orks can really do it would be quite, sweet for Brad to overcome. But we all know Jack's a super hardcore live player. What I want to see is one, Mr. Michael Mann's list do exceptionally well. I really, really do. One, because it's something I favor Dreadmob, but two, because I know people don't really know what he's going to be doing here. So I hope he can pull this off. So that's one list I really look forward to seeing how they do. And then also, like we said, with Mr. John Holbrook with the Green Tide. So I think these two are probably, at least John Holbrook's. Yeah, I would say these two lists might be the two strongest Orc list performing list out of this, if I had to guess. If not, then of course Brad Chester is a sleeper, because of course Brad Chester can kind of beat up with anybody. We know Jasper's already performed very well with this before. And then we have Ryan in the Bully Boys list from Mr. Where's my boy? Where's my boy? One more. Benjamin as well with Bully Boys as well. So we know these guys can perform, but if you tell me in chat, you tell me what you guys are thinking from all the lists we looked over and all the detachments, what you're doing, which one do you think you're going to perform best? I guess if I had to favor, I'm going to slightly give a favor to John Holbrook, because he's just recently performed well with this list. He just recently updated it and got reps in with it at a high level, meaning he's nice and hot, ready to go like a pancake. And then if I had to go for next up on that, I would say Michael Mann, because his list is so unique in in structure and design and archetype. If you guys want to tell me in the comments or in the chat right now what detachment you think is going to do best and why, let me know in the comments, because that's going to be awesome. As for this last comment before I get off, I really think kill rigs are OP. I don't think they're OP. They're maybe a little undercosted right now. What I will say is kill rigs are universally just generally good. People bringing 3 can definitely be a bit of a stat check, but yet you see at the world-class level, people didn't bring that, because things are generally understood and used, are kind of generally understood and countered at the world-class level. So I think kill rigs have a kind of cap potential where they do very, very well for like 3-2, 4-1, and then when you're trying to push into that 5-0, they have a little bit of a harder time, where maybe you want to drop one rig for a battle wagon, or you want to maybe drop 2 rigs for 1 rig and then just assist the Green Tide list. So I think kill rigs, because they're diverse, is the strength in them. I don't think they themselves are necessarily always the strength behind all their lists. And if you do spam them to be the structure of the list, then they kind of fall off because you lack other things on your list at that point. But they're pretty awesome. Probably can go up a little bit in points. He said, I could take all 6 of these guys. Absolutely, you could, because you're delusional and anybody could do anything in their dreams. Bully Boys list should probably move to the hunt. So anyways, with that being said, guys, there's always one thing to keep in mind. Is check out the description, check out the objective markers and our dice, and don't cross the wall, because we knock it.